Hey guys, Heather here from Tye-Dyed Iguana, and today we're going to talk about the 5 most common mistakes made in reptile keeping. And hopefully after watching this, you won't make any of those mistakes yourself. So the first mistake we see people make a lot is they give their animal the wrong type of lighting. The most common thing we see is that when a person has a diurnal species, they don't give it a UVB light. Now, the diurnal species, they can't just have just a heat lamp. They also need a second light called the UVB light. They need this light in order to break down the calcium in their body. Without it, they can end up getting metabolic bone disease. Now, you can either have a separate heat and UVB bulb, or you can get a single mercury vapor light, which has your UVB and your heat in it, all in one. Now, another thing we see people do is give their animal the wrong strength of heat bulb. Now, for this tank, we couldn't just use one heat bulb, we had to use 2 because it is a very large tank. Now, it did need an additional heat bulb to get that hot spot to the temperature that the Redfoot Taurus likes. But a lot of people, they might just put one heat lamp on and think that's going to do it. But no, you have to make sure that that temperature gets hot enough for these guys. And the opposite mistake can be made. They might accidentally put too strong of a heat bulb on too small of a tank, and they could end up overheating the animal because it's way hotter than it needs to be. So both mistakes can be made, either too hot, too powerful of a bulb, or too low wattage of a bulb that doesn't heat it up enough. So you just gotta make sure that you get the proper wattage of bulb for your tank. So the last thing about lighting is that some people leave the lights on all day long, like all day, all night. Now, for diurnal species, that's definitely not a good thing. They do like to have their 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark. Yeah, if you keep the lights on all the time, it can really mess up their cycle, their eating and everything. So just make sure you turn the lights off at night. Try to give them 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of dark, and you should be good. So the next common mistake people make is giving their animal the wrong diet. One of the most common things we see for this is that they give their herbivores insects or crickets or bugs or something. Now, you see here we have Uromastyx. They are strict herbivores. See, we have greens for them and nothing else. That is because if you give these guys too much protein, they can go into liver failure. That is definitely one reason why you don't want to feed your herbivores too much protein. It can make them sick. It can also give them diarrhea, and that can lead to dehydration, and you don't want that. So yeah, people too often, they give like tortoises and iguanas too much protein, too many bug treats or other types of treats. They're just way too high in protein, and they have health issues because of that. Now, feeding, another mistake people can make is giving their animal the wrong size of prey. For our animals, we try to make sure that their prey item or their insects is, you look at the space between their eyes, and that's about the size of cricket or bug they should get. Now, some people, they'll try feeding their baby animal a full-size cricket, a large cricket. Now, the baby will try to eat it probably, but it probably won't be able to eat it very well, and it'll just go hungry. Or, in worst case scenario, it could possibly get the prey item into its mouth, and it could possibly choke. So you want to just try to look at the space between their eyes and give them something that big. Now, for snakes, we recommend that their prey be about 1/2 times the size of their body and no more. It can be a less, of course, but that's about the size that we recommend for those guys. Now, for this guy, the size that would match his space between his eyes would be a medium-sized cricket. So we don't give him larges. Now, mistake number 3 in reptile keeping is hydrating the animal improperly. Now, if you look at this tank, you'll see that the bedding here is wet, but it's not dripping or anything. That's basically what you want as far as tropical animals that need a good moist environment. Now some people, they will just spray the tank so much that it'll just be dripping and sometimes even have standing water. Now that's no good because that can cause mold, mildew, and bacteria to grow in the bedding, and that can make your animals sick. It can make their skin, it can cause them to get skin infections and all that. So if you ever see any of that stuff growing in your substrate, definitely replace it. And with the new stuff, just make sure that you spray it just enough to make it wet but not dripping or having any standing water. Now, of course, you could also run into the problem that you underwater your tank where the soil is really dry. That can lead to problems too, especially problems with shedding and stuff. The animal doesn't have enough moisture to help it shed, and it can also lead to other health problems. So yeah, you just want to find that happy medium. And one thing to note, going back to our Uromastics, you notice that we have no water dish in its tank. That's because these guys, they cannot have moisture in their tank. If standing water creates way too much humidity for these guys, and they get respiratory infections and get sick. So they are strictly desert. They should not get like any humidity at all. So about the only humidity they get is from their greens. So that provides them with all the hydration they need. They get it all from their food. Mistake number 4 that people make is giving their animal the wrong size of tank. This is a pretty big one because they'll get the animal as a baby, think, oh, it's so small, I can just put it in a small tank. Well, that's not true. Baby reptiles grow very quickly, and you want to make sure that you give it a tank that it can grow up in for the rest of its life, that it can stay in. That actually saves you money rather than starting with a smaller tank that it can't be in once it gets bigger. But yeah, we definitely recommend when we sell baby beardies, we sell them with 40-gallon tanks because that is what the minimum tank size that they need to thrive. Smaller tank sizes for animals, if you try to keep them in tank sizes that are way too small, it can cause them to have stunted growth. It can cause deformations and stuff. So you definitely don't want that. You definitely want them to be in a bigger tank that it will be able to grow into, rather than a smaller tank that you're just going to have to eventually replace. Alright, so our 5th and final mistake that people make in reptile keeping is keeping multiple animals together that shouldn't be. For example, we have a chameleon here, and you notice that there are no other chameleons in there with her. That's because chameleons are one of the ones that you don't want to keep multiple animals of together. Some people think, oh, I can keep a male and female together, house them together. No, they really don't do well together. They can be together briefly for brief mating sessions, but other than that, you want to keep them alone. They're very territorial, and they will stress out if you keep them together. Especially if you have 2 males. 2 males will try to kill each other. And that goes for a lot of the different reptiles, like most of them. Like if you try to keep 2 leopard gecko males together, they'll try to hurt each other. And bearded dragons, they will try to kill each other. So yeah, you definitely don't want to put 2 male reptiles together. Now one thing we'll mention here is that keeping 2 females together is generally okay, as long as they are about the same size and there's not a huge size difference. Now if we would have a baby leopard gecko in here, that would be bad because a lot of the adult reptiles will try to eat the young ones, really tiny ones, if they get a chance. So yeah, if there's a definite size difference, you don't want to really keep them together. 2 males, no. 2 females, that's okay. So yeah, just as long as they have plenty of room and stuff, and you don't see any problems with one trying to dominate the other one. So you just gotta keep an eye on them. And one thing we also want to mention is with some people think it's perfectly fine to mix 2 species together if they have like the same environment. Like they would think it's okay to put a leopard gecko with a bearded dragon of the same size or something like that because they both live in the desert. You can't do that because they generally don't get along. Different species generally don't get along. Even though they may live in the same environment, they have different heating requirements. They eat different types of food. Yeah, in general, it's just not a good idea to keep 2 different species together. Especially ones that like live in different habitats. You don't want to mix those. those that live in the same habitat, you still don't want to, because they're just going to be way too different from each other, and yeah, it's just generally not a good idea. Alright guys, so I hope that kind of helped teach you what mistakes to look out for with your reptile keeping. And hopefully you guys won't make any of these mistakes. If you shop at our store, we'll make sure that you get care sheets and that we educate you about your animal before you take it home, so you won't make any of these mistakes. Thanks for watching, and see you guys later.